In this special edition episode, Golden and I discuss the online DC fan event, the DC FanDome, with guest of the show, David Raiklen. Full speed ahead. Welcome to the Omega Beam number 91. I'm your host, Oren Merton. Did you know that there's a two-part online DC Entertainment fan event? The first part was held yesterday, August 22nd, and the second part is being held on September 12th. Each day, there's 24 hours of exclusive fan content, and you have to log in to www.dcfandome.com in order to view it, and then it goes away. Golden and I watched a large chunk of the streaming content on the DC FanDome, and we discussed it with friend of the show, David Raiklen, who in his own lockdown hideaway also viewed some of the streaming content. So because our conversation is a Zoom call, I feel that I have to give you the caveat that I do what I can to clean up the audio. But remember, this is coming over Zoom. We're not talking into studio microphones in a studio environment together. We're talking into laptop mics. So with that said, here we go. I am here with Golden and guest of the show, David Raiklen. Hello, David.
Hello, Warren. Hello, Golden. Awesome to see both of you.
Exactly. Great to see you too. So we wanted to talk about the event that just happened, the DC FanDome. Their online, sorry there was no Comic-Con, but here's what we can give you event. So I think the first and most interesting question is, how did you think it worked as an event? In what ways did you think it succeeded?
Well, okay. We have to start out by saying that it was 24 hours of all DC all the time.
Right.
So, I went in with a little bit of an adjusted perspective because, at most conventions, you have Marvel and you have HBO and, you have costume makers. There's a 500 billion ring circus going on. So
True.
Given that it was just all about DC, I thought it worked pretty well for something to sample.
I would agree. I would agree completely. We just had in July last month Comic-Con at home. So Comic-Con attempted to give you some content as well, just to keep their name in everybody's memory. And I didn't think it worked very well because what they did is they took pre-recorded panels and video and things like that, and they just uploaded it to their YouTube channel. And that was great as far as giving you content, but it didn't have a real event feel. Like, people kept emailing me or texting me asking, hey, are you watching any of the Comic-Con at home stuff? And I would always respond, I watch a little bit. I think I'll watch the rest later. And this looks interesting and that looks interesting. But it took me a while before I just sort of slotted it into my schedule. But the way DC did it, by having it a 24-hour thing, you had to slot yourself into their schedule, which kind of gave it more of that event feel, even though it was entirely online and pre-programmed. And you didn't get to choose what you went to. You saw what they were streaming, but you did have to go there. You had to go to a website and you had to watch it. You couldn't just sort of let it flow on your screen at your own leisure.
I agree with everything you just said, and I'll also say that they had a wonderful unifying element,
yes,
courtesy of Jim Lee, and the Hall of Heroes,
yeah,
and the satellites, which they didn't even do this time. And I think that that next event on September 12th may be even more coherent and satisfying, because instead of just being in one space, you can explore it. And I'm not quite sure why they decided to, postpone that second part, but just having that Hall of Heroes where people were in a kind of like a giant convention booth.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about. If not, it's wonderful Jim Lee concept art that's been blown up to super mega graphic size.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was a great. It really gave everything that wonderful consistency, and it was a beautiful 3D model. You know, for those at home who've been in Zoom calls or whatever, you know that you can put usually a digital background behind you. Well, this was more than a background. This was the entire foreground,
then imposed into an environment.
Yeah, exactly. And, you could do that when you have green screens and money and you have an amazing artist like Jim Lee who's capable of rendering something so evocative.
Yeah, I really think they should have given the visual effects artist, credit, because in some ways it was kind of like a web TV show that was kind of like a reality show with hosts that were, introducing the different segments. And the segments had a, quote, plausibly live component to it, but they were also pre-recorded.
Right.
But part of the reason why it worked better is because the people were performing better. They were acting like they were having a good time. And I'm not saying they weren't. Maybe they really were having a good time hanging out with their friends who they hadn't, and colleagues who they hadn't seen in a long time.
I think there was a genuine appreciation and, oh my gosh, isn't this so cool, between Linda Carter and Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins.
Oh, yeah, they were a mutual admiration society.
And then you had Kristen Wiig, who was just like, oh my gosh, I'm meeting her.
I agree with both of you. There was this sense of joy. There was this sense that everyone was glad to be a part of this. And I wasn't in their room, but I would guess some of that, everyone's probably different, but a little bit of that is, I think, with Comic-Con at home, just putting up YouTube videos, I from reading Twitter and people who were involved and people who weren't involved, it was very chaotic that there was not really a single entity who had a coherent vision of what they were doing. It was more like they put out a bunch of feelers to everyone saying, hey, do you have a video that you could send our way? And there wasn't a sense of cohesion. But with this, you got the feeling that DC themselves said, we have a thing that we're doing, and we want you in it. And that gives more of a sense.
And they probably learned from the Comic-Con.
Yeah.
That's probably true. But, movie people, TV people are accustomed to doing press junkets. Having a certain, what some people call Hollywood happy talk. It keeps the audience, especially if the audience is professional journalists, feeling like they're engaged and that they're getting useful information, and that's like really important to be able to come across as authentic and informative that way. I'm not saying that the people at Comic-Con, the virtual at home thing, couldn't do that, but I think a lot more of the folks that were presenting at FanDome but this is a press junket. This is, we're doing publicity for our movie that we've, put years of our life into. So we really care about this.
Right. And you did get the feeling in those DC FanDome, like the lesser segments. Like I watched Mark Bernardin, who's a writer of TV and comics, and he moderated a history of Milestone comics, which was the first black.
Yeah, that was great.
It was, and I didn't know that history. I was really interested in learning it, and those guys, they may not have had the training in Hollywood happy talk, but you just got this feeling they were just so happy to be involved in, that you've got these major motion pictures that have segments which made sense, and you got this feeling they were just so happy to get their time, in the middle of the day where they could express how happy they are that Milestone is coming back as part of DC Comics, and that joy comes through.
Yes, it does. Well, that was also something that I liked, is that even though there was an obvious kind of rehearsed and post-production element to it, you had people from all over the world asking questions. And that, again, helped ground it. So you had the movie stars, and then you had the comic creators, and then you had the fans, and they were all in the same space. Although I do have to say that perhaps my favorite single moment was during the Wonder Woman 1984 panel, when they were taking questions from the audience, and someone appeared on the screen and said, "Hi, my name is Venus from Florida."
Yeah. Just another fan.
Yes.
Happens to
of course, it was Venus Williams, the tennis star. And you could see that, again, that everybody was so happy that, wow, I'm getting to interact with this famous star. Oh, yeah, what did you guys think of the Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League?
Oh, that was fantastic.
I thought that one, and also the other one,
Gotham Knights,
they're both just visually stunning and really just incredible.
I'd love to see an animated series that had that quality of production.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
The thing with video games is they can keep reusing scenes. So, but what I also liked was that they were talking about with like the Suicide Squad, that you could play co-op or you could play by yourself and switch between the characters. It gives you different ways to play it.
Do we really need to have Superman made a villain? I mean, come on.
It's not the first time. I mean, they had a game previously. It was called like Injustice.
Oh, I remember when Injustice was in pre-release at E3, and
yeah. So that was again Superman as a bad guy. So I think they just keep trying to mix it up. Those aren't my favorite.
That's like, it's so lame. That's something that people in the comic books did after decades of writing Superman as a hero.
Right.
Now we really need to mix it up. These guys haven't even gotten 1 decade of Superman as a hero right. I'm sorry, but I love the original Superman, and for a few years they were great there. They really had it down.
I get what you're saying. It's one of those things where
Batman films, those are great, but again, they couldn't get like 1 decade down of having the characters being consistent and growing.
Well, speaking of Batman.
And I totally respect everybody working on those films. They're doing the best they can. It's just that they need some kind of vision that they can stay with.
Man, oh my gosh!
Right, I have my schedule here. So
yet, I didn't watch all 8 hours of it.
Right?
Did you? I may have seen 4 hours of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was something I could see, several hours of. But that's the way I am in physical conventions too. I mean, I definitely limit the number of panels that I go to. I'm not one of those people that, just camps out in Hall H and sees everything.
Right, stays all day. Yeah, well, that's one of the things about having a schedule is there were things that I specifically decided, okay, well, that doesn't interest me that much. So this is when we're going to get up and just do stuff. But we did, after the Wonder Woman panel, stay for the Sandman universe because we're huge.
Oh, that was cool.
Neil Gaiman fans. Yeah.
Great speaker.
He's a great speaker. I love the actor Michael Sheen as well. And they brought in comic creators as well as those who are working on the audible, narration, full cast version. It was a lot of fun, and I think that for some panels, like we've already talked about the Wonder Woman panel, for the Sandman panel, I think for some panels this format really worked. After the Sandman, we caught the Flash movie, and as you were saying, this is a press junket, this is promotion, and I have to say that the Flash panel actually got me more interested in the Flash movie than I had been previously.
Well, I really liked the trailer for The Flash. Talk about visually stunning. That, for some reason, really hit me with, the wows.
Yeah, and that's what they want to do. I mean, they want to get you that interested with the production art and talking about what they're doing and everything else. So I thought they did a great job. And of course, speaking of great job, I'm a huge James Gunn fan, and seeing him there talking about the Suicide Squad and how enthusiastic he was. In a way, the Suicide Squad suffers from the fact that the cast is so gigantic. Hardly anyone got too much time to say anything.
It was amazing to see how big that cast was.
Yeah, he brought, how many people did he bring with him? Like 12? More than that.
Oh, I don't.
It was Warner Brothers.
Basically, there were 18 people there. And I know it was 18 people because they basically played like Hollywood squares.
Yes.
And they had, 9 on one side and 9 on the other.
Right.
I think that'll be the best of the three, Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, and the new one. I forget what the subtitle is.
Oh, the new Suicide Squad movie?
Yeah, the gun suicide.
It doesn't have a subtitle. It's just The Suicide Squad.
Okay. That's not confusing at all.
Yeah. So, the other one was Suicide Squad, and this one is The Suicide Squad. What's not confusing about that?
It might have something more.
When it comes out, you never know.
Speaking of sequels and how to announce your sequel's subtitle or subname, I thought that Shazam did a really wonderful job with that.
Oh, yeah.
Them saying, we can't say anything. And meanwhile, the little girl is off there drawing to the side, and she holds up a poster that she supposedly has drawn, and that has the title of the movie.
Right.
And they're like, is that what it's called?
And then the director pops on and says, yes. So, that was... Zachary... Levy is always entertaining, and he definitely knows how to work a crowd. He knows how to do the Hollywood talk thing, and he was charming, and they brought in the cast of young people, and they are charming as well. The director came in, and his job was basically to sit there and say yes and no, and he did it efficiently. And, but again, it's that getting people excited for product that doesn't exist. And that's not the easiest thing to do.
Well, the one that had the biggest mountain to climb, and yet they did a great job of it, was with Black Adam.
Oh, yeah.
That they only had concept art, Dwayne Johnson, and they somehow made that work.
Dwayne Johnson could probably sell you the shirt off your own back. I mean, he just seems like such a genuine person, and he was so legitimately excited. And I mean, he even mentioned it, but the fact that this had been in production hell and something he'd been working on for like a decade, that this is a passion project for him. And so when he gets up there and seems completely enthusiastic and is like literally exploding in his enthusiasm for it, it's contagious. It really is.
Yes, it is. And, I don't know how I'm going to feel about seeing him in this role as a villain unless they're doing the non-villainous version.
Yeah, that's my guess. My guess is they're going to bring in the Justice Society of America, and that for some reason he will probably end up originally at first in conflict with them, but then at some point they'll realize that they're on the same side, and it'll be the team up. That's my guess.
Oh, you mean just like a WWE script?
You'd almost think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to tell because you're not really sure how to take that wink at the end. At least it didn't smolder.
Yeah. Not getting a Jumanji reference in there, nice. But yeah, I have faith in Dwayne Johnson and how he's going to play this. I mean, like he said in his piece, he said the audience comes first, and I think he knows that the audience doesn't want to see him really evil. That the audience always wants there to be something that they can root for in whatever character he's playing.
Well, and it's like we've been saying about villains in general. I mean, if he ends up being a villain, his whole thing is to make the world and the place better.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's not the very shallow villain.
Right.
Well, that is one of the things that the big movie stars all seem to have in common. They have a sense of what the audience likes and doesn't like about them. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know that's something that I can do in front of the audience, and that's something I can't do in front of the audience. And sometimes they get a reputation of being difficult because they'll put those limits, but those limits are what make them the stars. Is the audience gets what they expect, and they don't get something that they don't like, and it sort of becomes a trust thing, right?
Right.
And it didn't strike me before, but in the second Wonder Woman 84 preview, it struck me this time how much their roles are reversed. You have, he doesn't know this world, so now she's showing him around this world, and now she gets to dress him up.
Yes.
And Oren's comment is like he could just sit there and watch him trying on clothes and her commenting for like an hour because it's just so entertaining.
It was so fun to just watch. For those who haven't seen the trailer for Wonder Woman 84 has now hit YouTube, so please go and enjoy. And there's just a scene of this time Chris Pine trying on modern clothing and Gal Gadot, giving her his critique. And I could watch that. That alone to me is a movie.
Chris Pine is just so perfect for this role. I mean, you have this serious situation and he's able to just say this line that makes sense that he would say that, but it has this humor in it. And like and I'm not going to be more specific than he does one of these lines while they're sitting in the plane during the preview.
Right. Well, it's a little bit like Scarlett Johansson and Robert Downey Jr., where there's just a great screen chemistry between them. And that's part of what makes movies and TV shows really come alive, is when the actors are interacting like they're real people.
Right.
Exceptionally good-looking and charming people.
Yeah. Speaking of trailers and previews that were released for the first time as part of DC FanDome, the final panel of content they had was The Batman, the Matt Reeves movie, The Batman. But seeing that preview, I was not particularly excited about the movie. I see every Batman. It's not that I wasn't going to see it. But it was like, oh, okay, another Batman. Nice. But having seen the preview, it has a flavor of no other Batman movie that has been made so far. And it looks pretty interesting, I have to say.
And I thought it was interesting because this is the first time in the preview. Usually, you've never actually seen Bruce Wayne with the black stuff around his eyes that is behind the cowl. And this is like one of the first times you actually get to see him, the cowl removed, but that black paint around his eyes, which just makes him look even more gothic.
That's right. It's he's taken off his cowl so he can, jump on stage with his goth band. But it had a unique look and definitely has a unique flavor. The Batmobile did not look like a massive hot rod or a military ordnance.
No, it looked like a modified Camaro or something like that.
Yeah, it looked like a guy in a garage took a car and turned it into something else. It's a real, I gotta say, I appreciate what they're doing. We'll have to see how great the movie is, but just the atmosphere and the clips of that trailer made it look very interesting to me.
And I like how they surprised you in between some of these bigger panels with like little glimpses into things. Like there was something about the Teen Titans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, just the Titans. About the Titans. That was really kind of neat to see. There was... What was the other? There was another one. I was like, this doesn't look familiar. Did I miss something?
The schedule right there.
Yes, but that's not on the schedule. Because they threw those in between.
Yeah, there was like interstitials that were like 5 minutes or 4 minutes, but they were good.
Right. What they did, which I think is in the end worked, is on my schedule, I don't have the paper in front of me right now, but on my schedule, there's a few here where they have the Flash panel for the TV show, and then in parentheses, extended. And then Titans panel, in parentheses, extended. And those are all in the forthcoming September 12th. But the reason they say extended is because they did use like snippets of those panels as those interstitial, they'll take like 6-8 minutes of the Flash panel, and they just threw it up there. So you got some of the TV shows, even though the full panel is going to come later.
And then Oren missed this because he stepped out of the room for a while, but I thought it was cute that you have Batman from the animated series talking to Batman from, I forget the name of the other series.
Oh, yeah, the panel was called I'm Batman, and it's all the people who have voiced Batman.
This wasn't a panel. This was a little, just like, few-minute animated thing where Batman was talking to Batman. He was talking then to Lego Batman, about they needed TP, or he wanted TP, and the other guy had another thing that he wanted. And they were like, one of them had a flower. So he's like, well, can one of you stop and get TP? And he's like turning his car around to go get TP at the store. And then all of a sudden you have the new Batman from Batman Beyond showing up and telling them that they're all wearing their masks incorrectly. They're like, oh, we're all wearing our masks. What do you mean? It's like, no, you're doing the complete opposite of what you need to be doing in terms of wearing a mask in this day and age. So I thought that was it was really cute, because it was just, and then they cut off Batman Beyond. They hung up on him because but it was really cute to have all of these different Batman characters just in today's timeline having a conversation with each other.
That sounds very fun. The part I'm talking about is where they had the actual actors. For example, the person who dubs Batman in Spanish.
Right,
yes.
And they had someone from India. They had, Portuguese. Yeah, absolutely. That was interesting to hear what Batman sounds like in all these different countries, and to see scenes that with like English subtitles and talking in German and whatever else. Yeah, that was definitely interesting. What I wonder for the future is, I don't know, and I don't know if they'll make it public, but I have no idea how they are measuring, what their rubric for success is. Maybe just how many people logged in and viewed a certain number of minutes of DC FanDome. But assuming it is successful by whatever rubric they are using, obviously it's not a really money-making thing, so it's not going to be profitable, but I'm wondering, if they decide that it was successful, how will what they learn here affect the future? I mean, I absolutely think when Comic Cons go back online in 2021, 2022, whenever they're not going to sit it out. DC is not going to say, no, I'm never going to a Comic Con again because DC FanDome was successful. But I'm wondering if this will become a regular thing, or if they will integrate. Maybe they'll stream live their Comic-Con panels on, fandome.com. Or I'm wondering how they might integrate what they learn here into their future marketing, publicity, community, etc.
So I think if you do a search for this, you might be able to watch the one I was talking about. Someone did post something on YouTube, Batman talking to himself about toilet paper. So if you do a search for that, Batman talking to himself about toilet paper, and DC FanDome, you can probably find it on YouTube.
The ironic thing is that the YouTube channel it was on was a guy named Hulk Smash. So
very good.
Crossing companies there. But yeah.
There you go. The Batman DC FanDome, Warner Brothers, 10 million views. And remember, it didn't go up until less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
But that's like what you get from a major release from Beyonce or something.
Yeah, that's real. That's very significant numbers. So I wonder how this will affect what they do going forward. I can imagine that they won't want to let this go, that they'll realize, oh, this worked. and they'll keep doing it, which I think is certainly worth doing. But then the question is, how will it affect panels at Comic Cons and stuff? Will they hold the trailer so they don't share it at, in San Diego Comic Con, instead keep it another month for DC FanDome? Or how will all that work out? It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, well, it's like D23 and Comic Con, or a BlizzCon and Comic Con.
Right.
It's hard to believe that any of the major brands will abandon Comic Con.
Well, I'm sure they won't. I'm sure they won't.
Because they get so much bang for their buck there.
Absolutely.
It's not just the fans who are, the hardcore fans that will share it times 10 or times 100. Mm-hmm. It's the massive amount of press that's showing up there. I've seen the press list there, and CNN will send multiple reporters there. BBC News will send multiple reporters there.
Right.
Even for Disney, that would be hard for them to command that kind of attention. Now, it's true they have to compete, but they're the top dogs there,
right?
And I can see that they would want to have their own convention as a moneymaker, and to explore more things than they could necessarily, get the kind of time they wanted at Comic-Con. Because as many panels as there are, it's still, it's still limited.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine DC FanDome continuing as a way for them to either give more stuff, like maybe the trailer drops at Comic-Con and they release some soundtrack music, or they release some other information or something that they don't release at Comic-Con.
They released trailer 1 at Comic-Con, they released trailer 2 at FanDome.
Yeah.
Or at least 2 trailers plus a teaser anyway.
Right.
Why not make it all of it?
Comic-Con's a teaser and DC FanDome's the trailer.
Sure. There's lots of ways they can do it. And ultimately...
And there's the international trailer.
Right, there's the international trailer. And ultimately, I think there's enough content that there's never going to be a lack of it. It's not like DC only has X amount of content. Oh, we went to Comic-Con, so that's it for the year, we're done. I mean, they're always going to have something else to share.
Yeah, behind the scenes videos have become, more than a cottage industry. They're just an industry.
Yeah. I wonder if that means others are going to start doing the equivalent of DC FanDome. In a sense, Marvel already is part of like you said, D23. So Disney kind of already has that going. And now Warner Brothers is as well with DC. So I wonder if we're going to start seeing, Sonyverse doing something like this. If it turns out that...
That's kind of been brewing for years, because there's hundreds of thousands, millions of gamers who want to go to E3 but can't.
Right.
Maybe that's where this is all going, is to have smaller conventions. One of the TV series that I work on had its own mini convention.
Mm-hmm.
We had Space Command Con, and we didn't have 1 billion visitors, but we had thousands.
Sure. Yeah,
Marvel might be able to, put together a convention that has like 500 million visitors if it was virtual.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. And there is, as we've talked about, on the 12th, they're doing the rest of DC FanDome. And what's interesting is when you look at the schedule, whereas for the movies and things in yesterday's DC FanDome, everything had a time slot. Wonder Woman was an X time slot. Sandman Universe at the time slot after it. For all the TV panels, etc., The time slot is simply Saturday, September 12th, 10 a.m. through Sunday, September 13th, 10 a.m. So
well, that's interactive.
yeah, so I think
On rails.
exactly. So I think those are going to be more on demand, and it will be interesting to see how differently it does as far as views, as far as interaction with fans, everything else.
Well, I sent you guys a link to
Yeah.
Netflix expanded universe that I think in some ways looks like it's cooler than the DC one. Although, I haven't seen the DC one yet. So, and I know comparison is odious and all that, but I can see that, DC isn't the only one who's doing this.
Right. Yeah, this may be the future. We're doing now. All of this stuff is front and center because everybody's stuck at home. But even when people are out and going to live conventions, live events again, I don't think this kind of thing is going away.
Yeah, and you're also able to get to audiences that may not be able to get to conventions. So you're being more inclusive of who gets to participate or watch or see what's going on.
Yes, well, we've mostly been praising them, and I think that it's well-deserved praise. But let's get real. A convention, even a smaller local convention that only has a few thousand attendees, has a cool, special vibe that FanDome doesn't have and isn't going to have.
Right, there is no in-person energy. One of the strengths of DC FanDome that you had to go there, you had to log in, you watched what they were streaming, is also a weakness in that you don't get to say, I want to go into this room and not that room. It's you're fed what they're feeding you, or you leave. Those are your choices.
And you miss the immersive experiences that you get with, like last year with Amazon, they had The Boys, they had Expanse, and they had Carnival Row. Yeah, I mean, you have those. The year before that, it was Ready Player One, and you got to kind of go through the different scenes that were from the movie. And you miss out on that by not having the in-person.
Yeah,
you miss going to hang out with your friends.
In San Diego Comic Con,
miss that anyway right now.
Yeah, that's true. Now we're not doing that anyway. In San Diego Comic Con, they call those activations.
Yes, that's the term of art, and those are very highly sophisticated. They have activations for all kinds. I mean, National Geographic has them.
Yeah. So I don't think DC FanDome. For those who have never been to a convention, you may not know this, but for those of us who have, there's no way that something like DC FanDome, as good as it is, and as well executed as it was, it will never be a convention experience. They can try to give you some of that flavor, but it will never be able to compete. Because we are social animals. We love to be with each other. We love to be in actual physical spaces where you can have activations, where you can, see these, these displays and everything, and you could put on headphones and hear something really unique.
So says the person not very fond of crowds.
Well, I don't really like crowds, but, luckily in activations, they limit the numbers, so it's all good.
Well, I was, talking about local conventions that have
exactly.
attendees, not, New York or San Diego, where it's hundreds of thousands of attendees. And that really is a quantitative and qualitative difference. So I think that conventions are going to continue to grow. And I think that idea of being able to reach out and talk to the star, or have your favorite artist autograph something for you, or even do a personalized sketch just for you. I mean, that is so cool. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't got that kind of passion for something.
That's absolutely true.
Back in the 90s, it only lasted, I think, for a couple of years, but there was the World Animation Celebration.
Yeah.
that was just all about animation. I remember, I think I got to hear Ray Harryhausen talk, and he had like the little Medusa, the actual Medusa that was used in Clash of the Titans.
Oh my God,
And he-
that's
Right.
amazing.
I mean, I was so far back that I couldn't see it very well, but it was still really cool.
You were in the same room as that iconic thing.
Yeah, and like you were saying about the personal touch, one of my favorite Comic-Con memories from a number of years back is I went to the panel of one of my favorite comic book artists, a woman named Becky Cloonan, who was actually the very first woman who ever drew Batman. And she had a table down in the exhibit hall where she was selling some of her works, one of which was an illustrated Dracula. And so I bought the book, and then she drew a, hand-drawn picture of Dracula in the cover for me. And that's that kind of personal touch that, as much as this online stuff, is nice and can be enjoyed and fills a hole, you're never going to get one of your favorite artists to reach out of the monitor and draw a picture for you, just for you, with your name on it. That's something you get at a convention.
I completely agree. So I think that we're going to see more online conventions, and I would be interested, purely professional interest in how much merch they sold.
Yeah, they were selling some merch. That's right.
I didn't even notice they were.
Yeah. I didn't check it out, but I saw that they were.
I just remember there was like a production assistant shirt for something.
Oh no, that's a different. Yeah, exactly. That is something very cool. Zack Snyder made a shirt that had the Justice League logo on the front. On the back said assistant producer, and that was a charity shirt. All the money going to suicide prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his thing. But yeah,
that's the only thing I remember being sold, though.
Yeah, Warner Bros. It was on the website. It was like a link, I think, at the bottom of the website where you could, click it, and it would, I guess, I'm assuming, send you to a merchandise store. I didn't even know what it looked like. I didn't look.
Again, with the convention, you can get authentic stuff.
Right.
I remember going to a Coldplay concert, and in the concert you could buy the official tour T-shirt, but then outside there's all these bootleg copies.
Right.
And so, I think it just depends on how much you care about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to have something that kind of looks like their shirt and you don't care that it's a bootleg, then, you buy the $11 one. And then, if you want the authentic merchandise, then you buy the $25 one.
Even when it's the wrong size, but it's the only one that they have left.
Yeah, along the lines of what you were guessing at, I would say I would be surprised if their merch sales were very high, because like Darcy was talking about, like you were talking about, a lot of buying merch at events, it's to commemorate the event. I'm not sure how many people are that excited that they need to wear a shirt about an online event.
Was there a Comic-Con shirt for the Comic-Con that didn't happen or something like that?
Yes, there was. You could buy a 2020 Comic-Con at Home shirt. I am
now you see it,
not
but
sure
you weren't
how
there.
many sold, but it exists.
I don't know if you can see this on your radio, but or on your
2018.
We can see it.
But this is the official Comic-Con pin available only to attendees and person attendees for 2018. And they have a astronaut because they were commemorating the space program. So the Comic-Con mascot, which is a toucan, it's been a toucan for all its years, is in a spacesuit. And I, as you can see, have not even taken it out of the plastic wrapper because it's too cool to even touch.
Yeah, I can't see online events doing that. I could be wrong. I could read tomorrow that DC sold millions of dollars worth of merch, but I wouldn't expect it. I'm guessing they're not expecting it either. But
I think, like you said, that the primary purpose of this is to keep their name in the news and to kind of provide a little bit of excitement and fun for their brand, which otherwise, is kind of losing to everything else in the media landscape, right?
I'm definitely interested in catching some panels and logging into the second half of DC FanDome on September 12th. If you are interested in this kind of thing and you missed this, then I would recommend checking it out on September 12th.
YouTubers that have, ripped it and posted it. And,
oh, sure.
I'm not endorsing that sort of thing, but it's a fact.
Right. Well, that is the world in which they live. In fact, it's on the DC FanDome frequently asked questions. Can you do that? And they're kind of cagey. They say, this is really supposed to be just for us, for 20, but they never come out and say, we're going to take it down. You're breaking our copyright. I mean, they sort of say, come on, leave it for the FanDome. Really, please? But
right. The negative publicity for blockers. Yeah, the last thing that Warner Brothers wants to do is be known as the blocker in chief.
Right. So they know it's going to happen, and it doesn't maybe make them happy, but they're also not going to push it.
I ended up liking it more than I thought I would, and I liked it enough to, say that, okay, I'll check into the next part of it. Now, I also should say, just in the interest of transparency, that I work for a online streaming service called Krypton Radio, and I wrote the Krypton Radio article on DC FanDome. So I do have that, vested interest in FanDome being okay, because it makes my article look good. If FanDome sucked, it is.
And
no, it did not.
For our audience, I've read a number of the blogs, and I think your blogs are always interesting and very good. So anyone who likes to read blogs and is listening to this, check out KryptonRadio.com.
If you enjoyed radio, Krypton Radio.
Yeah. From a technical point of view, here's my one complaint. From a technical point of view. So what I like to do is take video from apps on my phone or computer or browser, and I like to cast them on my television set. However, while by default browsers will let you do this, and if you're an Apple user, there's AirPlay. If you're a Google user, there's Chromecast. I mean, there's lots of different technical ways this can be done. But I think Amazon does as well through their Echo stuff as well. There's also a way to cast. So it's I'm not talking about any specific technology, just the technology of taking something from your browser to the television set. However, Warner Brothers disabled it. So the only way to cast was to mirror your screen, which you could still do, but that did not include sound. Because generally when you cast using the technology of casting, be it AirPlay or Chromecast or whatever, you get sound and picture. It
would have been nice to be able to watch it on the TV.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. It was such fun. We should do this again.
We definitely will.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/91. If you like this episode, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, because it's those reviews that help people who like this stuff find our podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.